going to try to make a pin roller. This one out here, because I've already made it. But I'm just going to show you how I did it. These things are kind of fun to make. There's several skills involved with it. Duplicating the handles and getting them, you know, to look the same on both sides. Making this cylinder here just as close to perfect as we can get it. Of course, mortising and tenon the handles inside and all that. But if you want to see how I did it, stick around, because I'm going to get started right now. Let's get started. Okay, well, getting started, I got this nice piece of pecan that's hard as a rock. But anyway, it's a little over 12 inches long. Got a piece of walnut, which I'm going to use for the handles, and it's about 10 inches long. I've gone ahead and marked my centers. I've drilled a little hole out for my spur. If you notice, your spur is pretty wide. It comes back. If you try to drive this in, you know, a small spindle like this could split. So, you know, I always drill a little hole right there. That way it can still center up just before the spurs engage. So I always wipe them off before you put anything into your morse taper. Make sure it's good and clean, doesn't have anything in there. Just run it in. Alright. Now I'm going to start out, I'm just going to make these into cylinders. Just going to round them down, and I'm going to put a tenon on the end of the walnut so that I can put it in my pin jaws. So I'll get started doing that. Alright, let's get started with this thing. Pick it up a little bit. All I want to do is get it rounded down to cylinder. We'll see. Okay, just a little bit more take out, but I'm going to go ahead and get these roughed down to cylinders, and I'll be right back when I get ready to start turning. Okay, I've got everything roughly down to cylindrical. Now what I'm going to do now is get it ready to mount on my pin jaws. So I'm going to put a 1-inch tenon down on this end of the roller part, and I'm going to go with about a 3/4 inch tenon. I'm going with about a 3/4 inch tenon down here on my handles. Okay, and I'm just going to mark 11 inches, and that's where I'll carry out my tenon from there. So the way I'm doing that is I've adjusted my vernier calipers to a 1 inch, and I'm just going to cut this out. I'll just carry that tenon all the way out to the end. Okay, well, I've reversed this around. I've got my pin jaws mounted up. I've got my tenon in the pin jaws. I've got my tail center brought back up. I don't want to turn off of that pin jaws. I don't want this hanging out past that. For one thing, the pin jaws doesn't have any grips on the inside there, and it can actually pull out. So I'm not going to mess with that. In expansion mode, it does have grips. So when I turn this around, I'll be expanding into my mortises that I'm going to use for my handles. But now I'm going to go for about a 2-inch diameter, which is actually probably going to be a little less than 2 inch. Let's see what I've got here. Right, there's 2. And I'm not sure if that's going to take this flat spot out or not, but I'm fixing to find out. So I've got 2 inches dialed in, and now I'm just going to start trying to take this down and see where it's going to be around 2 inches. I believe that will get it. Okay, now I've just gone in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make several passes down through here the same way. There we go. Make sure okay. Good, I'm good down there. And I'll go about every 1/2 inch or so. Just to get good reference mark for my diameter. I'll just keep going until I get this all the way down, and I'll be back in just a minute when I get all of those cut. Okay, I've got all my little grooves cut at 2 inches. So now I'm just going to take my rough and gouge and bring this back down as uniform as I can get it with a rough and gouge. Okay, that should give me a fairly uniform cylinder all the way down. Okay, now next I'll show you how to make sure it's perfectly straight. Let me get set up, and I'll be back in just a minute and show you how I do that. Okay, I'm going to take this straight piece of wood here. Cut it down on my table saw to make sure that it's straight, and I'm just going to go back and forth on this thing to make sure that I get this thing really nice and flat. I'm going to have my shop vac turned on, so it may be a little loud in here, but all I'm doing is I'm going to get this thing spinning. I'm just going to go back and forth until I get all of this out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark this all the way around, or all the way up and down with marks. And once I get these marks taken off, then I know I'll be perfectly flat. Okay, so here we go. a couple little marks right here. Okay, but I don't see any more. Now down here is the only ones that are left. So I'll be back once I get these marks out. It might take me a few minutes. Okay, what I'm about to do now, I've got all my sanding marks out now from where I sized this down straight. All I did was I took the same 60 grit, went with the grain, and knocked off all the sanding marks. Make sure you get all those out because they'll really show up once you get the finish on. Now I'm just going to start putting the finishing cut on this end here. Instead of going flat straight across, I kind of like putting just a slight, very slight bevel in it. I think it just makes it look much nicer. So here, now also I have a fairly large hole here that my tailstock is in. What I'm looking for here is I need to take that down a little bit so I can get my Forstner bit centered in there. So I'm just going to start right about here, go in, and bite that off. And just kind of square that off a little bit. Okay, let's see if that'll be small enough to get my Forstner bed in. Believe it will. Okay, so now I'm just going to chuck up my Forstner bit. It'll be a 1-inch bit. Start boring my hole. Okay, I'm just getting ready to bore a hole in the middle. And I'm using a 1-inch diameter Forstner bit. So I want to go at least 1 inch on my mortise. So there we go. The reason is the diameter, the depth of your hole needs to be the same or larger than your diameter. And all that'll do, that'll just strengthen the mortise. It makes it harder for it to break out, and roll out this way. So that's what I'm doing now. I've just marked my Forstner bit at about 1 1/8 inches. I'm just going to cut in all the way to my mark. Pull these chips out. I'm almost there. Alright, there we go. 1 1/8 inches. Now I can turn it around. Now I can turn it around and mount this thing in my pin jaws using the recess. Excuse me, that's very, very hot right there. So that's what I'll do now is I'll just spin this thing around and mount it in my pin jaws in the and let them open up inside. I'll be back in just a minute. I'm going to mount it back in here, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with this end that I did. So I'll be back when I get my when I get ready to sand it up. Okay, now I'm mounted in my pin jaws over here, and actually they're in expand mode, and I'm about to take this tenon here. I've still got my mark right there, so here we go. Minutes So I'm good to go now. All I got to do now is I'll bring my tailstock back in, my revolving center, and we'll get this thing sanded up, and then I'll get ready for to make the handles. Okay, I sanded with 60 grit just a few minutes ago. I'm going to go with 150 now, and I'll just continue on down to 320. Between each grit, I'll sand with the grain. Okay. Between each grit, I'll sand with the grain. Knock out my tool mark. My sanding mark. Really simple procedure. You're just working your way up and down the grits. And that thing's really feeling good and smooth now. And after 220, I'll wet sand. And that'll raise the grain up just a little bit where I can get it cut off. So anyway, I'm going to proceed on, and once I get to 320, I'll come back and finish up. Okay, now I've wet sanded at 220, so now I'm just going back and wet sanding at 320. And all I'm doing is getting going, just putting water on here, and just letting her sand. And all this does is raise the grain and allow the sandpaper to cut it off. Because what are people going to do with this thing? They're going to use it and then they're going to wash it. And when they wash it, it's going to raise the grain and it won't be smooth anymore. So anyway, that's why I always wet sand anything that's going to be food, used for food. I'm just going to knock off anything that's left with some 400. Then I'll bring up my hair dryer and I'll dry this thing off so I can get my finish on it. And I'll be back when I get ready to do my finish. Okay, getting ready to start my finish now. And all I'm using is just a friction polish that I made, that I got from a wood turner that's online, Eric Anderson, and he uses this stuff on all kinds of food grade projects, and that's what I'm going to do. But I've wet sanded down to 320 grit, and I also went back and hit it with 400 and an 800 grit Scotch-Brite. Just run over it real quick, and that thing's just as slick as glass. But I'm getting ready now to put on my finish. So we're going to wipe it all off good with a paper towel. And I'll get ready to apply my finish. And all I use is just a paper towel to get this thing going. Alright. Raise down around 800. 800 RPMs. I'm just going to apply this stuff on here. On the ends. Just a friction polish. And I'm not looking to get a shine, a very shiny finish. All I'm wanting to do is just seal in the oils and the waxes. Okay, what I've done now, I've cut a 1-inch tenon here, about 1 inch and a 1/16 long. That way I'll have about a 1/16 in the bottom, just, you know, for any variation or any glue, extra glue that may be somewhere. But I've got to make 2 handles out of this piece of walnut, and they need to look very similar to each other. So what I've done is I've made a story stick. Okay, and this represents my tenon, and then this is going to be my shoulder, which will be 1 3/16 inch diameter here, going into a cove right here at 3/4. So I'll make a mark here for 3/4. And that'll be the deepest part of my cove, and the diameter will be 3/4. And then it comes back out into an arc, and that's 1 inch and 3/16. It'll come back, that'll be the high point of the arc, and then this will be the tail end of the handle there. So I've got all my marks here, and I've got my story stick in case I need a reference point. So I know as I come into this cove here that this is the bottom part, and it's got to be 3/4 inch deep. As I come back into my arc coming around this side right here, it's got to be 1 inch and 3/16, and then it'll curve on down to a point at the end. And that's how we're going to do that. So now I need to make a flat spot to begin with, about 1/8 inch wide, right here. Because that is my right diameter already. And then I'll start into a cove. I'll use my spindle guide. I'll start into my cove, and I can see my mark right there. There's my next mark, the high point, and there's the end. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and hit my diameters. My first one is 3/4, so I'm going to set my calipers for 3/4 diameter. Use my thin parting tool. It's going to come in here just like so until, okay, there we go. Right, my next diameter is 1 3/16. Which actually should be about the diameter that it is right now. Fairly close anyway. And it'll be here. This will be the high point of my arc. Okay, there we go. Now that's that. I don't need the calipers anymore, and this will be the end of my handle. Okay, now I'll just start shaping. Come in about 1/8 of an inch and start my cove. I've got to curve it down to that. Down to that diameter right there. And then it goes into a bead coming down from here, or an arc. try to make a smooth transition here from this diameter right into that cove. And of course this will come to the end. And here. Like so. This is just going to be my basic shape of my handle right here. I'll go ahead and I'll mount this in my pin jaws. I'm going to cut this off, turn this around, mount it in my pin jaws. And I'll be right back. As soon as I get that done, I'm going to take this over to the bandsaw and whack that off. I don't really like cutting that apart with the pressure on the tailstock and all that. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to run it over to the bandsaw and cut that out. I'll be back once I get that mounted up. Okay. I've cut this off with a bandsaw, got the other side ready to make another handle out of. So now I'm just going to start shaping this down and getting this one ready to go. So I'm going to angle this down into a point and just smooth all of this up. With a little arc right there. Now, I'll just come back, just kind of scrape it. That'll be ready to stand up. Well, sanding with a grain again. I'll be back when I get ready to put the finish on it. Alright, I'm just getting ready to put the finish on it. Same finish as I used on the pin or on the roller itself. And all I'm going to do, I'm just going to put maybe 3 coats on here and we'll see how she does. Just the friction polish, you just have to let it cure. You'll feel it getting warm through the paper towel. looks nice. And I'll do about 3 coats of this. And let it cure for a couple of minutes before I actually glue it together, and I'll be back when I get ready to assemble this thing. Okay, well, I've got one handle in. Whoops, dropping the other one, just kind of throwing it around accidentally. But I'll get the next one in. I'm going to get this tenon. Get plenty of glue on this tenon. Alright. Okay, let's give her a shot, see what she does. Twist it good as it's going in. Let the glue get in all the little voids. Blow the air out till it gets nice and tight in there. Wipe off the excess. Alright then. I think I like it. I really do. Well, alright. Here we are. Nice little pen roller for making biscuits, which I love biscuits. But anyway, use the friction polish. Talks about how to get this nice and straight across here with the sandpaper and the vernier calipers. Using them all the way down to get that almost straight, and then using the sandpaper to get it finished up. How to duplicate the handles, which I mean, if you put them side by side, there would probably be a little bit of, you know, deviation between the two, but it looks pretty good the way it is. I don't see any problem with it at all. And I hope you all enjoyed the video. I haven't been able to do one in a week or two, but I enjoyed doing this. And a guy just asked me if I'd make one, so that's what I did. I made one. So let's get her. Let's get inside, and let's see. It's about 10 after 10 now. I'll try to get this thing uploaded. Y'all have a good day.